Hey guys, welcome to the Whitetail Anonymous podcast number 13. Tonight, Josh and I have a special guest on, somebody that we have been super pumped about ever since he agreed to do this with us. I know I've been kind of like a kid in a candy store, and so is Josh over this. We're both big fans of his, and I guess junkies is the correct word for that. Just read everything he does. Our special guest is Bobby Worthington. Guys, this is going to be a great informational podcast, something talk about some of the feats he's accomplished, some things he's done, and just deer hunting in general. I could talk about deer hunting all day, and I know Josh can too, and Bobby as well. Josh, say hey to everybody.
What's up, everybody? And if you don't know who Bobby is, he is a hard-working man, mountain bow hunter, and he hunts a little bit of everywhere, and he does it on a short time crunch, and he's very important. He's one of the only people to, I think, have 7 bucks featured in North American Whitetail, and 4 of which was on public ground, and 4 were in Tennessee too.
It was even a bigger feat.
Yeah. Mountain book, which is crazy.
Now, Bobby, say hey to everybody.
Hey fellas, how y'all doing?
I think Bobby, a good place to start with this for guys who are not caught up with what you got going on and what you've done. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Bobby.
Well, I've been bow hunting practically all my life, and I got started about when most people my age did, watching Fred Barrow on the American Sportsman TV show. It was narrated by Kurt Gowdy, and a lot of people my age grew up watching that show. I was a teenager and grew up watching it and got fascinated with the bow and arrow and bow hunting in general. And of course, just being a working man from a humble upbringing here in southeast Tennessee, I never really had the finances or anything to really travel and pursue any other kind of game but whitetail. But I got fascinated with whitetail and was fairly successful in Tennessee. And then back North American Whitetail, I got familiar with that magazine and kind of become a faithful reader of it. And I was just amazed. I always dreamed of going out of state and hunting a big whitetail, because really in Tennessee, our deer, we've got the Virginia subspecies and the Northern woodlands in the Midwest, and they'll be 20 inches better deer normally at the same age group. Yeah. So I was fascinated. I kept watching and TV and reading North American Whitetail, and the big deer was coming from Illinois. So back in '88, I made my first out-of-state trip to Illinois. I seen a real good deer that trip, but never got him. And in '89, I went back and killed a really big deer on public ground in a state park, Siloam Springs State Park. And that deer field dressed 278 and scored
that's a horse
180, I think. And that was my first big out-of-state deer and second out-of-state trip, and I was hooked from then on. And I've been really fascinated with mateer bucks and hunting mateer bucks. And like you said, I started writing for North American Whitetail magazine in 2000, and I've had 7 deer featured in that magazine. It takes a good deer to get in there, and all of mine were bow kills. So I've been really fortunate. Now that's a lifetime of hard hunting to get the deer I've got. I have pursued it as hard as anybody for several years. It's not just something that I've done casually. It's hard work to kill a big deer, and it takes a lot of effort.
Yes,
without effort in your life, something awful takes place.
It does. Anything great takes effort.
So you got to pursue it hard, and I hunted hard. And I lost my favorite hunting partner and best friend and son 4 years ago, and since then I've just he was always in the tree with me. I was filming him or he was filming me, and I just hadn't had the fire in the belly much since. I've been doing a lot of traditional archery competition, and me and him got started in that together, and so I kept going to that. But this year I'm planning on an out-of-state trophy hunt, and I'm kind of getting the fire in my belly again about pursuing big material whitetail.
I'm glad you're getting it.
I can't imagine losing my son. He's the light of my eye. I can't imagine the hurt there, Bobby. We're sorry about that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Bobby, something I get from reading your books, and it kind of reminds me and Josh, not to the scale of you, of course, but it seems like you pick one buck out and you obsess over him and chase him till you get him. And I know Josh is that way. You know, he just scouts these deer and he gets the story behind it and the chase. You know, it's something I admire in your readings, and maybe I'm taking it wrong, but that's what I take from some of the readings that bucks you've killed.
Yeah, that and something else I'd like you to touch on. You can go into them back to back or whatever. When you schedule your out-of-state hunts, how do you, like, what do you start? What do you look for? Do you study maps? You know, do you call the state? I mean, and what are you looking for when you get there? You know, what you hunt terrain pinches or stuff like that. Just, you don't care to go into detail on some of the stuff you do. Your process.
Okay, we'll do that. Let me back up just a second. Comment on a particular buck. That's where I get my thrill. Here in Tennessee, where I hunt public and private ground, but I'll try to watch a deer. He has to be 2.5, but generally 3.5 before you can really distinguish his rack and know him from one year to the next. And you would not believe the deer I've followed in Tennessee, and hopefully they'll develop into something I want to hunt, but never did. You know, mature Tennessee deer 8 won't get out of the high 130s or 140s normally, and 10 point out of the 150s, but that's what I want to do. I want to hunt an individual. I want to get to know him. I want to study him. I remember when a deer I called rattlesnake was 3.5. I told Clay, I said, I'll get that deer someday, and he'll be standing right here when I shoot him. We was out in the woods looking around, and I actually shot him probably within 6 feet of where I told him he would, and I shot the deer at 7.5. So that is, a lot of people, trophy hunters, will hunt an age group deer. They'll want to hunt a 4.5 or 5.5. But for me, what really floats my boat and what really entertains me is getting to know a deer personally on a one-to-one basis as far as his habits and traits, and then pursuing that deer once he develops into what I want to shoot. Now, that's what I like to do. Nearly every deer I've ever killed, mature deer, well, I was after that particular deer. And if another deer comes through, I just usually won't shoot him. If I do, I don't feel the same about him because I feel like it was luck. And it takes a real deer if he's my target deer. It takes one a lot better than my target deer for me to shoot him because, like I said, to me it's just luck. I didn't know nothing about that deer. I didn't know where his core area was. I didn't know where his home range was. I hadn't watched him develop and grow up, and I hadn't got a history with him as far as pictures and maybe sheds. But anyway, that's just a little bit about hunting an individual deer. It really forces you to think differently when you start doing that.
Yeah, it's a lot more rewarding when it comes together, but it does make you, you got to be patient to do it, and you got to, sit. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but you got to patience, and you got to make sure you pass a lot of deer, and it's hard. You got to be.
You got to be very, very. I'm losing my track of words.
Yeah, I can't think of the word I'm going to say. I've done it the last few years, and it is tough. I've passed a few decent.
You got to be very disciplined.
Yeah,
very disciplined, and it's that's something I've taken from your books, Bobby. That I see that you're a very disciplined hunter. I look up to that. I need to grow on that as myself, as being a more disciplined hunter.
And a lot of people will say they're going to wait on a mature buck, and the first 3.5 that runs up, they'll get excited and shoot it, and that's not the type of maturity that you'll need to kill the type deer I kill, because there's a lot more 130s running around in the woods than there are 140s, and there's a lot more 140s than there are 160s, and there's a lot more 160s than there are 180s.
Yep.
So you have to be patient, and if you following a particular deer and hunting that particular deer, it helps you to be patient because you know there's really a nice deer out there.
Yep.
So that's and you have to have a different skill level. I guess a lot of people can set up in the woods where there's some good number of mature deer and sit there until one comes along. That's a different type of hunt than what I enjoy. But now there's people that accomplish the same thing I do, and a lot of them are not even known. Just people that's quietly following their passion like I did for years, and I really don't like to. I've tried to kind of stay out of the limelight and the publicity lately, and I didn't even know what a podcast was until Josh contacted me and asked me to do one. But here we are. So
I'm glad you're doing it, and I'm glad we was the first to, got you to do one, because I've mentioned to a few other, Mark Kenyon does the Wired to Hunt, and I've mentioned to him through Facebook and stuff, tried to get you on a few times, and I'm glad that we finally got it lined out, was able to have you.
Yeah,
wanted to pick your brain for a long time.
But what Josh touched on, Bobby, I think it'd be a good place to go to after this. You know, what do you look for to schedule your out-of-state hunts? I mean, what's your thought process on that? You know, you say you're going to Illinois or wherever you're going. How do you pick the date and times? How do you pick where you're going? I mean, what do you look for?
Well, the same thing I looked for back in '89 when I killed that big deer at Salon Springs State Park. I'll tell you, I was amazed back then. The public hunting in Illinois was better than the best private land you could find in Tennessee. And those deer, some people say they're more like cattle in that their alertness. Our deer down here is pursued and hunted so hard by legal hunters and poachers that they hear a four-wheeler crank up 400 yards away, they're breaking their neck to get out of there. Yeah. And it's because of the cover, too. We are like 80% woods, and the Midwest is 80% farmland. The deer are kind of a lot more used to human intrusion. But anyway, after back in '89, and for several years after that, when I got ready to go to the Midwest, I would ask the DNR to send me pamphlets on their public hunting, and then I would key in on the archery only public ground, and I would key in on the larger tracts.
Yeah.
I'd like to see 7,000 acres and up, at the minimum 7,000, and I would key in on those. And then from there, in the booklet, I would get the number for that park, and I would call the manager, and eventually I'd want to talk to a ranger or somebody that was out in the field, and I would talk to them, and I'd ask specific questions, because a lot of times they're kind of protected. They don't want more hunters in there, or they may be looking, or their family may be looking at a particular deer too, but normally they'll tell you the truth if you ask specific questions. So I had several questions I'd ask them. I'd want to know what they thought the trophy potential was, and from there I'd ask, what size deer were harvested there the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And then I would really key in on a specific question. I'd want to know, had any of the rangers or workers seen a exceptionally large deer, and did they think that deer was killed, or maybe last year or two or three been seeing a particular big deer, and if they think that deer got through the season. I was pretty confident in my ability, and if they were seeing a really big deer, I'd try to go up there and get keyed in on that deer. That's how I killed a real big one in 2000. Yeah. 182-inch basic 8-point at Salone's at Red Hill State Park.
That's the one that
they said they'd been seeing a really big deer, and the hunters had been after it a couple of years, so I went up there and found some sign and got on him. But that's some questions I asked. So I look for archery only. Second, I look for a large area. And third, I want to ask some specific questions and get some answers. And I don't like a real flat piece of ground. I ask if it's rolling hills where I can find some bottlenecks and funnels more than flat ground. Yeah. And if it's 7,000 acres and half of it's cropland, sharecrop land, or food plots, I'm not as interested in that either. I want most of it to be
timber
and big woods.
Is the reason behind that because more hunters seem to flock towards that?
The open ground.
The open ground.
That's one reason, and the other is I'm a woods hunter. I can get out in the woods and I hunt funnels and bottlenecks. I don't sit on the edge of food plots.
That's the same way I like to hunt.
The more woods there are, the more I've got to look over, and more I've got a chance to find a good funnel in the woods. And then the second reason is a lot of hunters like to sit on food plots, and I found that there's usually a third or maybe twice as many hunters on a place with a lot of food plots than back in the woods. They like to go and see. You see these hunting grounds on TV up in Iowa where it's intentionally managed, and some of these good hunters kill big bucks up there. They're always hunting in food plots, and they want to see something that looks like one of them farms, and they're kind of at a loss also how to get out in the woods and find the terrain features that they need to be hunting, and it's just easier to sit on a food plot. You're going to see more deer. You may not have a shot at them with your bow hunting, and you definitely may not be seeing the trophy deer, but a lot of hunters get bored in the woods when they don't see a whole lot of deer, and the type of terrain I hunt. A lot of times I don't.
Yeah. No.
But here's the difference. There was some guys coming to me one time, and they'd been hunting with this outfitter, and they just wanted to know what I thought their chances were. And I asked them just a few basic questions. I said, are you seeing how many deer you see at the tree stand? Oh, they was all excited, like 50, 40, 50, 60 deer a day. I said, okay, the only other question I need answering is, how many of those deer could you have shot? How many deer could you have shot today after seeing 50 deer? And if the answer was 2 or 3, then I know they're not set up correctly.
Yeah.
You need to be able to shoot at least half the deer you're seeing. If you hunt the type of terrain I do, the tight funnels and restrictions, then you can. So if you're hunting an area where you're seeing 20 or 30 deer and you can only shoot 1 or 2 a day, you're not hunting in the right location if you're bow hunting.
No, I agree with that.
No, I've done that before with some of my buddies. They want to hang a stand here or there, and they're like, "You'll be able to see a lot of deer here," and I'm like, "I ain't about seeing deer. I want to shoot deer." I said, "I don't like it. They don't pinch them down enough." And that's what I try to look for in the mountains too, is the terrain, where it pinches down, and I'm gonna get shots at pretty much any deer that comes by me.
Sure, you guys know much about it as I do. You know what you're doing and what you're talking about, and there's a few key ingredients you've got to put together, and anybody does it. It ain't like I've got some secret I'm smart enough to figure out or something. It's just a lot of experience and thought about it a whole lot too.
Now, you said something, Bobby. You look for 7,000 acres and above on it. Is that just more space, or is there more thought to that as well? I mean, is it just bigger, less people, bigger, more spread out, or is there something else?
It's age structure of the deer. If you've got a say 1,500, 1,000 acres, or even sometimes 2,000, it's pretty close to a highly populated area in a high populated state, then it's just strictly numbers. A big buck, if you're hunting public ground, you might as well not even hunt 200 yards from the road. Now, you might kill a big one. You might kill a big one right on the road, but that is an exception. Most big bucks move around where they feel safe, and when they get within 200 yards of most roads, they've learned over the years that they find a lot of human scent and human intrusion. They will get bumped, this and that. Now, the rut will make them do funny things, and sometimes I'll find a unique setup right beside the road, but generally speaking, they're going to stay in the middle of that area more so where they don't find human intrusion. Well, if you've got 2 or 3 bucks in there and the rut's coming on, it's just like a bachelor group of bucks running around out in the field. They're going to split up for the rut. They're wanting to go where they've got a better chance of breeding and not so much competition. So you're spreading those bucks in a smaller area, and there's not going to be near the number of mature bucks in a smaller area.
As there are a large area.
Yeah, and the hunting pressure is going to be greater there. Of course, if you've got 1,500 acres and it's in a fairly good populated area, you're going to have a lot more hunters
there
per acreage. It's just a simple second-grade arithmetic, It ain't like I'm figuring out something that somebody else ain't. But I always look for the big areas and found out I can find a place that's not hunted in the bigger area.
True.
While we're on that, talking about Illinois and that deer, I think you mentioned this deer, but can we go into detail about the Illinois, I call him the road buck. He was bedded. You found his sanctuary in beside a highway, and you'd talk to I think you walked in on some private ground too. You'd met the guy that was hunting the private ground, and I think you went pretty deep into the public ground. And I believe that was that mainframe 8 point you mentioned.
Yeah, it was a really nice deer. His tines run from 12.5 to 15 3/4 inches. His main tines off of the brow tines. There was nothing under 12.5 and up to 15 3/4. Unbelievable deer with an unbelievable body. You can look at it on my website. I believe that deer would have field dressed. I never got the web, but I also believe it field dressed over 300 pounds. One of the largest animals deer I've ever seen in my life in the woods, and probably the largest. Just a remarkable hunt, and just it just come together kind of picture book like everybody's hunter all their life would like for one to come together, and I was fortunate enough that one did. The deer was bedded between a gravel road, and I think it was U.S. Highway 50. It was very heavy traffic. It's just like a interstate nearly. And after I killed the buck, when I shoot a buck, I always like to go in afterwards and find out where he was coming to me from and where he was going and as much about him as I can, because I don't like to branch out far away from my stand when I'm scouting. Particularly on this particular deer, I really had to scout him right before I hunted him. I spent 2 or 3 days, but I'm real careful about my intrusion. It's very important not to let the deer know that someone is on to him. So, but anyway, after I kill a big deer or the last day of an outstate season, if I'm planning on going back to that public ground the next year, I will walk it, and I'll walk it heavy. Now, I have shot a few big deer the last day, but I find it's more beneficial to me if I've got the fire in the belly and know I'm going back the next year. I find out it's more beneficial to spend the last day scouting. And here's the reason why. Yeah, I'm generally right in the middle of the rut or towards the tail end of the rut. All of the sign is there, all the running tracks, all the big rubs and straights, and all of the sign is right there laid out. And I'm usually back away from any hunter. I know if I'm not, I won't do it, but if I'm usually back away from any hunter anyway, and all the signs laid out, and I'm not worried about disturbing the deer because it'll be next year for them back. And what a good time to scout right there. And generally I can't go that far. Generally I can't take a vacation or go back that far in the late winter to scout anyway, and if I could, I would certainly do that, but generally that's what I do. But anyway, I followed this buck around and kind of figured out where he'd come from, and I didn't really know where he was living. I know he was frequenting the park a lot at night because of this huge tracks I found everywhere, these big rubs, but the hunters very seldom that I talked to, most of them had never seen him, but they'd heard rumors of him. 1 or 2 had seen him, but I knew he was bedded close by, and I knew he couldn't be bedded on the park. Just too much hunting pressure there. So after it was over and I killed him, I found out what he was
doing. What did that deer score, Bobby?
182 or 3 and some change. I don't remember exactly.
I can't imagine a 300-pound field-dressed animal. I mean, a deer. I can see an animal, but a deer. That had to be a horse. Hey, look.
There was a big deer. You know, I had hunted private ground for 2 weeks, and just about. And gun season was going to open that weekend, and I had already called this park knowing I was going to be hunting some private ground in the same county, because this park here was one of the few parks that allowed bow hunting only, that also allowed the bow hunters to continue to hunt during firearm season. When the shotgun season opened, a lot of the bow hunting only parks back then were just closed, and I don't really know why, but they allowed it to be open. So I knew I wasn't going to get to hunt on the private ground during firearm season because they don't allow it. I could have headed back like on Friday and just got a little rest before I had to start back to work, but going that extra mile, deciding to go ahead and spend that last 3 days on the public ground really paid off. Really paid off big for me. But I'd already talked to him and knew there was a big deer there, or I might have not decided to stay. But the first day I drove around the first morning scouting, I was just, it's full rut, and I was hoping to see something. Seen one little doe, and boy, that was discouraging also. But I started driving at daylight and drove around about 10 o'clock, and the hunters come out of the woods pretty well on. Then I got to looking around and talked to 1 or 2 hunters, and they'd seen this deer, and the park ranger had already told me about him. So I'm assuming it's the same deer. He was really a fabulous deer. And I shot him on a dead run. I was really proud of the shot I made on him. But there was another big 10-point with him, and that deer was big. It was he was a 150 to 160 inch deer, and I'd been there 2 weeks, and I thought I might shoot that deer. I was going to let him get a little closer and me look over a little bit, but he was material. And he was messing around, and all of a sudden he come running at me, and he looked big now, coming running at me, and I was up pretty high in the tree. But I didn't think he was the deer that got all the attention. But when this other deer broke out of cover and went to running, they was kind of running beside each other. They were just kind of wanting to fight, but not wanting to fight. And this other one just dwarfed him so bad, my heart just... If you ever kill a boone and target, you'll think you killed a world record. And this deer here, a 180-inch deer with tines that long, and me up over him. I'm telling you, it was a marvelous animal to see. Just beautiful.
I love hearing the deer stories. You know, it's we as hunters remember every detail.
Yeah.
You know, every in the wind blowing a certain way, the tree stand height, what you saw, and I love listening to them. This is awesome. That's awesome.
I had to get up higher than I wanted. That tree was a poplar. It was as bare as it could be, and there was plenty of oaks around. And it wouldn't have worked if I'd have been 5 yards or 7 yards on either side of that tree. It just was not the right tree. This here was the only tree that I would have been in that area, and I had to get there, so I just got up extra high. He did see me, but he was like 5 yards from me when he did, you know. But I would have, if he was walking, I might have got him to that. But I'm amazed when I go to public ground that's pretty heavily hunted, and I'll scout the whole thing or scout a big portion of it, and find a tree stand site that really fascinates me. And it's just always amazing to me that there's never been a tree stand in that particular tree, and then I kind of realized why people was not killing a lot of big deer on private ground or public ground unless they have a unusual setup. It's just they just don't select the right tree, and I'm always amazed that there hadn't been a stand in this tree either. But it was the only tree I'd have hunted in that whole big block of woods there.
Yeah, there. Well, guys, that will conclude part 1 of this podcast. Again, because upload times, we got to cut them to about 30 minutes each section. Just a shout out reminder: this podcast is brought to you by Ozonics Hunting. We are proud to be part of Ozonics. They have done a lot for us, giving us a chance, bought into what we're selling, guys. And we promised when we started this whole deal, Josh and I, that we would never promote something we didn't believe in, and something we didn't use, and something we've seen ourselves work, not just something you see on TV, some infomercial, some crap like that. It works. It flat out works. And it's something that, again, we're proud to be a part of and proud to push to you guys. Check them out, ozonicshunting.com. And guys, please stay tuned for part 2 of the Bobby Worthington podcast. And thank you for tuning in.